has I mean, you haven't played live for 15 years until 2000. Has portable computer technology afforded you the ability to do more of the things that you want to do live?
Yeah, it has. Well, it has when I get it together. I never wanted to. I never wanted to stand behind a rack of equipment and just press play on a CD, because it seemed like it was boring and it seemed like it's a lie. And to be honest, I still do it now sometimes. Some of the tracks that we played yesterday, I wasn't doing very much to at all. Although they were being played off the disc, multi-track disc live, I wasn't manipulating them very much. But that's because I was worried about other things at the time. But I have, in theory now, the facility is available technology, in technology to completely reshape the show as minute by minute, as you know. So that makes it possible to do the kind of sounds that we do and produce them in a spontaneous way, and for the performance to have its own shape and unique quality and so on. So that, in answer to your question, yes, it is possible now to do that. But I just wasn't very interested in, or energetic enough to do a kind of 9 Inch Nails thing where, 3/4 of the show is on tape and the rest of the show just involves breaking a lot of GX7s and hurting yourself. And that actually didn't interest me very much. It makes for a good show that lots of Americans can get very excited about, but it didn't interest me. Lovely guys though.
Did you design the visuals for last night too, and like the strobes and everything like that, or?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, obviously I wasn't running that on the day, but that's we try and get local crews to follow a kind of basic structure of how that works. The people in Montreal, the people look, seem like they're all really good and together, and good crews and everything.
Fireballs, tell me about you. Tell me your introductions to music, and I know it goes back a long time. Tell me about your.
Well, I had a very musical family. Both my grandfathers and my mother were all musicians, so I was kind of force-fed music from a very early age, and lived in a house where pop music wasn't allowed, and we just used to listen to classical music 24 hours a day. So
you didn't have a television until you were 15.
No, I didn't have a television until I was 15. So we used to listen to the classics all the time. And growing up in that atmosphere, I suppose it was inevitable that I was going to be a musician eventually. So
or a psychopath.
Yeah. So that's where it's all come from. But I think because I was force-fed a lot of the modern the classical music, the standard repertoire, Mozart and Beethoven and Bach. I really, by the time I was a teenager, I was looking at other things, and we used to go to a lot of chamber music concerts with where a lot of works received first performances. So I got to see a lot of modern music inadvertently, I suppose, Ligeti and Stockhausen and all this sort of stuff. A lot of those things I got introduced to at an early age, so I kind of got hooked, and it's been a slippery slope ever since.
How did you, tell me some of the groups that you were working with, and how did you meet up with Coil and get involved with this?
I met Coil. Well, I was working at the time with Julian Cope, and I'd made a few records with him, and I eventually became the keyboard player in his touring group. And John came to see a show at the Shepherd's Bush Empire. Did you come as well? No. Just John came, and he wanted to meet me, so he got in touch with my manager and set up a meeting, and we kind of hit it off from the first day, I think, and after we became friends, I was eventually asked to join Coil, which was great.
Actually, you're responsible for Coil playing live.
I am
basically.
responsible for Coil playing live because I said you've got to be able to. It's so easy. You've got to do it. And many tears have been shed since that day. But here we are. We're still doing it. So took a lot of arm twisting though to make them do it.
What do you see Coil becoming? What do you see Coil now as versus how Coil was maybe 10 or 20 years ago? How do you see it? How do you see it now, and then where do you see it going from here?
Well, it was Coil always was a vehicle. I mean, initially it was John Balance's band, and he just asked me to help him do some stuff. And the main difference right now is that I'm not sure how much he wants to do it, or how much he wants to make music. He tells me that he does, but he's going through kind of some weird things in his life, and I don't know if he'll continue to do that. And I don't really know if it's a reason, if the reason he's doing it is just to make money, or if he does feel kind of musically motivated. But assuming that he does, I'm sure we will continue to work together. But because we've sort of split up personally, obviously the sort of dynamic of it is slightly different. But the basic motivation for me has always just been whimsical. If there's always kind of new stuff coming along that's interesting, and I do like making music, so I'm sure that we'll continue to do that. And whether it's Coil or whether it's called something else, I don't know. But I think one of the things that's not good for a relationship, in just as much as it's not good for a band, is for people to take things for granted, to take the future for granted, or take any kind of continuity really for granted. In order to have a stable and fulfilling relationship, not stable but an interesting relationship that lasts, is you've got to you've got to keep things the way they were when you first met. When you actually can't put anything else out of your mind except getting into somebody's pants. And it's sort of like the same with the band. You've got to approach your music as though you want to get into its pants. And if you just assume that next year there'll be another tour and another album, then it's fucked up. You can't really do it. So right now I'm not assuming anything about next year, apart from some shows I've got in May. If you have the attitude like just met some young German and you really want to do something with them, or if you've just met some piece of German software and you really want to do something with it, it's fundamentally the same. So on that basis, we'll continue to do things, but I don't know what they're going to be.
Absolutely.
What would you like to see Paul Sandra stuff doing live, or doing musically, or what kind of ambitions do you have?
Well, I'd like to do some live Paul Sandra shows because we haven't done any yet, and I think it'd be a good thing to do because I think it would be quite different to the records. So
quite different to everything in existence.
yeah. So that would be, I think it'd be quite a challenge to do that. So and again, I like kind of doing different things all the time, and resetting all the parameters and seeing what's going to happen. You know, I'm not afraid of change in that way, and you know, I think it would be. I've got some ideas for shows that could be, you know, quite exciting, I think. So, yeah, hopefully we can set that up in the next few months and do something. But also be good to keep Coil going in some form or another and keep working with this chap, because it's always interesting and it's always, you know, it's always a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, I have a bit of a horror of, like, Rick Wakeman, you know, used to be the keyboard player of, what was he in? Yes.
Yes.
And a number of other bands, and now he makes a living in England by going on like daytime TV quiz shows and those shows where you have to guess the value of the house, you know. There's one show in particular he does with Toya Wilcox, and he also does like these 200 date tours of really little English towns, you know, where he does a kind of multiple keyboard extravaganza thing, and then between songs he tells funny stories about the rock and roll lifestyle and things like that. And I can tell you now, that's never going to happen to me.
Or me.
And you know, the only way that I would want to resurrect any kind of old project or maintain any sort of current project beyond what I felt was its sell-by date would be, you know, if it was possible to do something new with it. You know, if I ever were to play with a band that I was in previously, the purpose would not be to just be nostalgic and to play old songs. The purpose would be to do something different and actually, you know, make some comment on how people had changed or how things had stayed the same in a bad way, you know, politically or socially or musically or whatever. I'm getting a wind-up signal. So if that was to happen, then you could be sure it would be something new and different and worth seeing.
All right, tape is about to end. It's on the 0-minute mark left.
Okay.